I am live here with a special person, Meridith Grundei. She's from or at least living in New York right now. And I think it's fascinating. I can be standing right here in my summer cottage in Copenhagen and have you all the way from New York. You're an expert on public speaking. You are a coach, a trainer, and an actor by background. Welcome to the show, Meridith.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm really delighted to be here and have a juicy conversation with you today.
Awesome, awesome. And I know it's Memorial Day in the US, obviously a big day for you guys. And what I thought, there are probably going to be tons of speeches around the country, isn't there,
I would
today?
think I would think so. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
little I haven't really looked out. It's kind of rainy and overcast here. Usually people like to go on picnics. I used to run not a marathon. Who am I kidding? A
It felt like
10K.
a marathon.
Right. It felt
Maybe.
like a marathon. I used to do that on Memorial Day. I was called when I was living in Colorado, called the Boulder Boulder. That was our tradition. And now that we live in New York, we got to find a new one, I think.
Yeah. Nice,
Yeah.
nice. We got
Yeah.
Gedyan in the house. He's writing here with a smiley, comedian, very funny guy. And Raj is joining in. Hi. Both amazing people who have had great conversations with. We got the expert in the house, public speaker, trainer, actor, and coach, Meredith. So if you have any questions for her, throw them on her. One thing I'm curious about, because
Hmm.
I saw your profile, seen your videos, and I mean I like your content. One of the things you do a lot is improv theater,
Yeah.
right? That's one of your expertise areas. So
Hmm.
what is that, and how can we use that to tap into our spontaneity so we don't become like robots where we have to memorize a script and remember to do certain things with our hands? Talk us through how we as normal human beings can use that on the stage.
Oh, that's such a fantastic question. I feel like there's a lot to say there. And so I will
Probably.
just I'll just start I'll start with the first thing that pops in my mind. How about that?
Yeah.
So improvisation. So I have a background teaching improv in Chicago. Loved it so much. Also performed on many stages as an improviser, and I just really gravitated towards the form because I also noticed in myself how it really opened me up to be more present on stage, more present in the conversations that I was having with people. And it also helped me think more creatively about those in between spaces where we tend to follow the rules so much that we fail to see what's on the outside of something. And so I started doing that as a performer, and then an executive coach hired me to come and work within his organization for global teams after they had done one of the psychological assessments, whether that be the Myers-Briggs or the Berkman assessment. He was working with the Berkman assessment, and so he would have me come in and go, okay, now we know how everybody is personality wise and how this group is functioning because of those multiple personality types. And so here's like a container, which the improv held a great container for these these exercises that didn't have any real world consequences, and they were able to see how they could work together in that way. And what's also beautiful about it, because the foundation of improvisation is this notion of using yes and, so that you can find moments of agreement, further a storyline. It's a wonderful tool for ideation and that brainstorming phases when you're putting together a new project or problem solving something. And what I loved about it, that yes and idea, is it helped all voices in the room be more on equal footing. So the inclusivity piece of it was huge for me. And so we call it, I call it more or less than I'm teaching an improv exercise. It's an applied improv form that I use, so that it's really about the magic is in the debrief. Like, what did we learn from this exercise or this game or activity? And how can we use that and bridge that into our day-to-day life and our work life? And as public speakers or presenters, what it also does is it helps really get you thinking about how you're engaging. It helps you stay present. I do a lot of physical exercises too, so that people can really take up space. Also, it helps when we feel stuck. Like, I know oftentimes people come to me and they're like, but nothing I have to say is interesting, or nothing really significant has happened in my life that I could write about. And I would say, okay, well, pick up the first thing you see as an example, right? So I'm just going to pick up like your chapstick. I picked up my chapstick and I'll say, tell me a story about that. Let's just do a show and tell the chapstick. And then I'll encourage like an emotion to be incorporated into the telling story of this. And for me, chapstick makes me feel really good because I hate having chapped lips. I have about 5 of them on my desk. I've got about 3 of them on my purse. Somehow I can never find one, so I'm constantly buying them. And what happens is we learn, oh, wow, that little mundane thing that we thought was not interesting is actually interesting because it's relatable to other human beings. And I would imagine somebody listening probably also likes a lot of chapstick in their life. So there you go. Yeah. I hope I answered. I just gave you a lot.
You gave me a lot. It's really good. I mean, there are so many key points as I was thinking about what you were saying that we can take away from this. One of the things you said is it kind of, lets us go on a roll. For me, you can elaborate on it, but it seemed to me like, we try to, at least some of the people I work with, try to over prepare and kind of stay in the comfort zone, whereas the improv, you can't, you obviously you can train and prepare, but you cannot prepare for that specific act, for that particular thing. So I guess it helps people to kind of say, okay, let me just be in the moment and see what happens. And what I love about improv is the funny part is when people screw up. It's not perfect when it's fun, or it's not fun when it's perfect. It's through the mistakes. And a lot of times I think it's the same when we give a speech. It's when we talk about how we failed at something, how we screwed up, or somebody spilled the coffee. We all get to laugh. And like, that is going to be the memorable moment, maybe. So I think there are a lot of good takeaways.
I love that you just said that, because those are the most honest moments, and that's why they're the most memorable. So it's like, I always say those mistakes are gifts. We just gifted the audience by showing them our true, honest, authentic self in that moment. Yeah. So you hit that on the head, and it's not a failure. It's a gift.
It definitely is. And I think to a lot of people, it's probably quite anxious or fearful to step up on stage, especially during improv, because there is only to a certain degree where you can prepare. So what I love about it is you said, okay, I'm out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do. And we got Raj here. You're throwing a bunch of great comments at us. You're both great. Asger, you rock. Meridith, your presentation is so great.
Thank you.
Great, man. If you got any questions like improv, how you can use improv or train alone, I don't know, or find a group, ask Meridith, ask her about fear, anxiety. That's a big thing for you as well.
Yeah.
What's your own story? Because I know you're an actor. Did you used to be somewhat anxious, fearful before you had a big show or going to auditions? What's your own story?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think my anxiety has gone in and out of being heightened and not so heightened. And I will be honest that there were a few times where I was about to walk on stage and do an improv show where I didn't feel nervous at all. And I actually was more worried when I wasn't feeling nervous. Like, what is it about that lack of, I like to call it like that energy sphere within your body? Like what happened to that? Because for me, I've learned how to take that anxiety and shift it into, I've heard a lot of other speaker coaches call it excitement. And I would say, yes, it's an excitement. It's an energy that's catapulting you forward. And you get to use that to not just engage with the audience, but then to breathe life into the content that you're about to perform. I would say so when it's an audition one-on-one, I would say that's when I've been the most nervous. I would say that's where I've had the most failures, is because I've let my anxiety get the better of me, and I would get into my head so much that it was almost impossible for me to be present in the room. And I realized that part of that was because I was making it so much about me. It was like, it was less about how I was serving the content. It was less about the story. It was less about serving the person in the room, the casting director or director. And it was all about me. And so I think that a really pivotal moment for me was when I realized that I need to shift that into making it about why am I here? What is my purpose? My purpose for being here is because I want to tell a story, and I want to elicit change from telling of that story. I want to connect with other people, right? And I want to serve that story, that playwright, that community of audience members. And so I think that that's a mind shift that could benefit everyone. Is like, it's not about you, it's at all. So that's one. I will say one really memorable moment for me was I was on stage. This was only like 5 years ago. And I had such high anxiety for some reason. I had done this show a gazillion times. I got on stage and all of a sudden I couldn't hear anything. My anxiety got so high that I felt trapped in my own head. I felt like, everything was muffled. I could hardly hear anything. My voice was short. And luckily, that character got to get knocked down, and I was lying on stage for a little bit, and I was like, Meridith, get it together, right? So it happens to all of us. And I would just say the more you can practice prior to any of these events and it become a habitual practice in your life, the better you're equipped to deal with it in the moment when it does happen in these strange ways that our bodies react to anxiety.
Yeah, that's really powerful hearing from you, because I mean, thinking about the number of times you've been on stage and obviously all the training you've got from your acting career, I mean, this can happen to all of us. And we got Muhammad with us. It's impressive to hear that someone has shifted your anxiety to improve yourself. Yeah, impressive. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I teach public speaking. I go on the stage too. It's not just to obviously it's to help people, but it's also to change myself, because we get to deal with our own anxiety and getting away from that thing, like you just mentioned, about being liked. It's not about being liked, it's about giving. And it's cool if they do like it, great. If not, let's just move on, find some other people that like it. Obviously try to incorporate feedback if there are things we can improve, and obviously there are. So yeah, very, very good stuff you have. So what do you say to people then that are fearful or anxious before a speaking gig? Sometimes that kind of stops everything. You cannot teach them really the core of a structure of a story if that blocks everything.
Yeah.
What's your number one skill?
One is to look at one's belief system and what are the things that you're telling yourself. Is the voice in your head constantly saying to yourself, I have so much anxiety, I can't. This is so scary, I can't. Everyone, my whole life, I've been hearing that the number one fear is getting on stage and presenting something in front of an audience of people. I'm not interesting. I can't tell a story. Whatever it is that internal voice is, I would say take a really good look at that. I'm a huge fan of journaling. So if you've had an experience on stage, right, or you've given a presentation that's internal to your team and it didn't go as well as you would have liked it to go, then really take some time to pause and notice what you notice. Notice what was it in this moment that was happening to me in my body, not in my head, in my body. Was my breath shallow? Probably it was. Was I feeling, was I feeling hot under my skin? So noticing those things and then writing it down so that you can track it, and then find a way to then switch that up for yourself. Okay, well then what is it that I can do next time to help with that? Maybe I need to take 20 minutes before I give the presentation and do some breathing exercises. Maybe I need to find a ritual for myself that will help ground me in. And so I really just encourage people to really start to develop that belief system in a different way. I've actually created affirmation cards for people that they can read that are like, I'm a badass and you've got this and I'm the best speaker on the planet. I don't remember what all of them say, but I think I got a couple of them right.
Yeah. No, but I think it is important to tell ourselves that we are good. I mean, that we have value. For me, affirmations it's very important for me that I truly believe in it.
Yes.
So if I go up on stage and say I'm the best in the world, if I don't really believe that, don't say it. Just say, this is good, valuable content,
Yeah.
if that's what I believe. And hopefully you believe that. Otherwise, you
Yeah.
hopefully don't go on the stage. So share something that you truly believe with yourself. Remind yourself of that. And it's actually okay that if there are people that happen to not like the content, usually it's for free. People can leave in most cases. I mean, so just know that most of the times, if they don't like it, they're free to leave. It's not
Yeah.
a prison. So, but we're here to give our best, and if people don't happen to like it, that's okay. In most
Yeah.
cases, I'm sure they're going to love what you have to say. But you know what? If there's 100 people, I'm sure there's going to be one in average that thought this is, no matter how good you were, this is crap. I mean, and you can see it on social media with some of the big celebrities that are, really crushing it. People like Gary Vee, Brenda
Mm-hmm.
Bouchard, there are going to be haters for them as well, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and they're doing
Mm-hmm.
amazing content. So if you get one, that's part of the journey. So don't take, actually, you should think that it's a good thing. If you have a few, it means you're doing something right. Just, you're separating people and have taken a stand rather than just being gray and blending in with everybody. So, but you
Yeah.
mentioned an important thing, which is the warm up. And I
Yeah.
think that's interesting because, I used to play a lot of football or soccer, as we call it here, as you call it.
Mm-hmm.
And we would obviously always warm up. It's not just the physical warm up for the game, it's obviously also the mind. And I could feel it when we had a game. Sometimes I wasn't on, or the team was not mentally. We would be physically warmed up, but not mentally. And I think it's insane to go up on stage and not prepare. I have tried it before, and it's not as good. And I've even failed miserably one time where I skipped it completely. So do your warm up, like you said. Have a
Yeah.
breathing exercise, have affirmations, find things that work for you. I like to listen to music that gets me pumped, gets me in the state I like. You want to find the energy for that specific setting. If it's a Memorial Day, maybe you want to have a certain type of energy, or if it's an
Right.
inspirational speech, you want to have some other kind of energy, right? We
Yes.
got
Yes.
Christopher here with us. I like what you
Ah.
just said about valuable content. It's my good friend Christopher. I'm awesome. If you want to know anything about storytelling, sharing your stories, your wisdom on stage or camera, we can get into that actually with
Mm-hmm.
Meridith here. Let me know, Christopher. You know, that's a question I've been dying to ask you, because what's the difference? I mean, you teach people how to get present and
Mm-hmm.
really, connect. How
Mm-hmm.
do you connect through the lens? I mean, I guess this is the question everybody's dying
Oh,
to know
yeah.
for,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, the last year. How do we do that? What's the difference between stage, camera, all of that? Walk us through, some of your core great tips.
Yeah. So the important thing about the camera is that you have to simplify. You cannot uh, try to reach everyone. So you have to focus on one person. And so I always encourage my clients to find one person that they're talking to. And it's almost like a branding avatar, right? So you find that one person, you give them a name, you give them an age, you give them a vocation, you give them you breathe life into them. It could also be somebody that you already know. And then I invite them. So that's the one person you're talking to. And then you need to be clear about what do you want from that person. I want to educate them. I want to inspire them. I want them to trust me. So what do you want? And how are you going to get that want met? And so I really have people hone in on that and then practice really talking into the camera. So engaging with the camera like I am right now, you'll notice like
Yeah,
I'm talking to you versus if I'm looking at you in your box on this virtual screen,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
less effective, right? So when you're
yeah.
talking and you're presenting to a group of people, you want all of them on the other end of that camera to think that you're specifically talking to each and every single one of them. And so that's what really helps with that. It's same tactics they teach also to commercial actors who are looking
Mm,
directly into the camera. Okay. And then if you have a hard time remembering to look into that camera, I say, well, then get a picture of that person, put it right
mm,
behind the camera, or get a post-it note with an arrow that says, look here, whatever you need to do to remind yourself. And then eventually over time, it just becomes habit. and you start looking into the camera and you're talking to someone very specific, and your audience is going to feel more taken care of and more met. So that was like the biggest tip that I can give for that. But that does take practice, and really, like what you had just said about believing what you're saying, believing that you're actually talking to that person.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. We got to look into the lens, and it's a little bit unnatural, but it is also an unnatural environment. So we have to adapt to that. One
Yes.
thing I often teach people is to use your hands a lot more, because it can be a little bit boring if you just have your face. So, I mean, maybe it's not so natural to have them up around your head or above your shoulders. You probably wouldn't do that most of the times during stage, but just the fact that I put them up here creates a little bit more dynamic to the talk, rather than I'm just here. So also, that's a little bit artificial, but again, this is an artificial environment, so we have to adapt to that. Whereas usually I would say, if you're on stage, try not to be acted, try to be more natural, just kind of find your best version. Whereas because of the camera, because of the technology, we have to adapt to that and do a few things that are not that natural.
Yes.
But what's your thoughts on that?
Agreed. And, and I also, like, you can see, I think we're both standing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's also huge, that you have this more embodied place that you can come from. It's easier to gesture when you're standing than when you're sitting. Also, if you're not a big, even gesturing, I'm not even gesturing above so that you can see it in the camera. I'm down here, right? I can still gesture, and it's still giving me energy in my body, right? So I feel just being able to move your body, feeling that floor beneath your feet is huge. For the stage, to me, it is different. It is like what you just said. It's like you want to bring your natural self to the stage, but you also want to have like a 360 awareness, right, of the stage. So there's the architecture of the stage. There's the backstage. There's stage left. There's stage right. Then you've got your audience, and I don't know how big your audience is, but if you're in a big house, there's a different way that you need to be bringing in that heart space in that space compared to in a conference room where you might move around a little bit more. Even in a big theater, you could also move around more. I always encourage people, if there's a podium, because I go to a lot of these conferences and they always put a podium up on stage. Always. I'm like, don't use that. Don't use that. That is the home for your water, if anything at all whatsoever, right? Because we want to connect with you, but if you notice body language, right? If we're standing like this, or if our shoulders are hunched forward, we're closing ourselves off. We're not allowing that heart space to be exposed, because that's vulnerable. That's vulnerability. When we're standing behind a podium, we're protecting ourselves, unconsciously protecting ourselves, because of that connection, that fear of connecting with the audience, or that whatever that fear is that you have for yourself. Right. So I always just encourage people, like, open up, notice what that feels like in your body, and go to the scary places, explore that space. Don't get trapped.
Yeah, that's a good point. What I try to do always is come early to the venue and have a chance to, sit as if I was going to listen, in the different seats. How would it feel if I was listening here? Walk around the stage. How does it sound? And if I don't have a chance to do that, let's say it's far away, I'm not going to drive, 10 hours before. I'll have the organizers send me a video. How does it look? Because it also relaxes my mind, like, oh, this is how the room looks. Because even though I've done this, many years, I still get nervous. I want to know where's the door out. I want to know how big is the room. These things, you watch it if you go into a cafe, a regular cafe, where people aren't scared. The people they'll mainly sit up against the wall and look out to the door. Those are the first that we take in, corners, because we subconsciously want to feel protected. If you sit in a corner, you're more protected. Your back is protected. And it's a little bit the same on stage. And that's why some people try to get, like you said, behind the podium, or, maybe step a little bit back from the stage. So I say usually you want to go a little bit forward. So you want to meet the audience and have a little bit more energy dynamic to it. Not that you can't walk back if you're telling a story, but try to be in the first part of that stage creates more dynamic, more communication to the people.
Yeah.
We got
I mean, if you think about it, stages used to be slanted, right? So that we would be
really?
downstage. So we would be, well, and
Oh, I didn't
also
know.
because the audiences were not raked at that time, right? So, um,
Hmm.
I always say downstage, come downstage, meet us, greet us, be with us. If you're hovering up back by the curtains and it's really hard for us to connect with you and it looks like you're about to run away.
Yeah, it's
So,
quite interesting. If you not watch some speakers that get nervous, then they tend to take a step back. It's quite
mhm.
normal. Yeah. Um,
Yes, exactly. And there was one other thing you said too that I wanted to moving around, you putting yourself in the place of the audience, I think is
yeah.
huge. And stage directors, if they're a good stage director, they're moving around every time they watch the show. They're sitting in a different place in the audience so they can get a different perspective to make sure that those stage pictures are beautiful. And we're one person, but we're also creating a stage picture.
Yeah.
We
That's
are.
true.
So, and we want to connect with everybody. So what's that shifting stage picture look like? Yeah. So I'm glad you
Yeah,
brought that up.
and what it also helps me do is because we got to put ourselves in the mind of the audience.
Hmm.
Like, okay, how would this person that's coming tonight feel when I say this? I try to connect. Okay, how would this make them feel? How is this going to vibrate with them? So it's for me, it's a little bit mental exercise to connect with them.
Yeah.
I know it sounds a little bit woo woo thingy, but it helps me. And
I
we got
welcome the
Mohammed
woo woo.
here. It says, "I am scared of what to say or do something that may bother other team. This is my fear." So let me get it right from you, Mohammed. You're talking about fear, and if you're having a team presentation and you say something in your team, or is it other teams? Uh, Maybe you want to clarify that. But anyway, what would be your advice to Mohammed here, the people listening? Maybe you're afraid that you're going to say something that is going to bother other people, or maybe
Mm.
even be like, hey, this is not right, frustrate people. Because you have
Um,
your podcast. Are you waiting for permission? So I guess you are big on this as well.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, then let me hear.
Yeah, I think it's really just I feel like you had alluded to this earlier too about really believing what you're saying and believing what your purpose is. And I think that you need to give yourself permission to really embrace your point of view and to be okay with the fact that not everyone is going to agree with you because they're not. And however, there will be people that do, there will be people that you inspire. And ultimately, regardless of that, when we first arrive, everyone wants you to succeed. People don't want you to fail. And if they do want you to fail, there's nothing we can do about that either. But most of the time, I would say people, when you start your presentation, they're just there. They want you to succeed. Yeah. So I think I hope that answers the question. So if it doesn't, please provide some clarity and I'm super happy to talk more into it.
And you mentioned a good thing. 99% of people want us to see us succeed. Let's say there's a 1%, that don't want us to succeed. Is that the 1% we're talking to? No, of course
No.
not. Well,
No.
you can leave. That's fine. Actually, I would prefer that you left. So if there are people that are not cheering for you, don't worry about it. They're not going to be the ones that buy your product. They're not going to be the ones that you are going to be able to help as well. So, go with it and, let's see what happens. But I think ultimately we have to take a stand and say something that is not totally gray, that does have a little bit of edge. I'm not saying go out there and provoke on purpose, but you do need to take a stand. And maybe, during a speech, you want to cut some corners so, it stands out a little bit stronger. And maybe if you have your report or paper, you can clarify, the details. Be like, oh, okay, I kind of get that. It wasn't that. So because we only have a certain amount of time, and I think a speech is often to create the big picture. And if we're too scared, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Cool. Let me hear about, because I know you're a theater director. You've done a lot of theater work and, worked obviously in the entertainment industry. What's the big difference between stories on, let's say, a stage for a theater in the boardroom, because storytelling today is the big buzzword. I mean, you can't
Yeah.
not go on YouTube, Instagram. It's like, tell stories. I got a friend, he's all like, tell stories. That's the answer to 99% of the questions he's given it. I don't know, the people he helps. And I think it's true to a large degree. But break it down for us. What do you think are the main differences?
The main differences, well, there's a lot of differences. I think one is when you're standing on stage, and whether that be in a play or a story slam, I feel like it's one story with a beginning, middle, and an end that is usually a story. If it's a story slam, it's something that's about you, that you're sharing with the audience, that you've chosen. And then, if it's a play or a musical, right? People come, they want to hear a story. They want to see actors play that out. So when you're presenting something, I think story is valuable in terms of whether it be a metaphor for whatever the content is that you're delivering, or if it's a story about a relationship that you had with a client that was a success, or if it's, there was one story I remember that I use as an example sometimes, that I think it was on This American Life, and they were just talking about vet insurance, because it was becoming a big thing and this was at the peak of when pet insurance was being introduced into these veterinary offices. And this woman was going around selling pet insurance to all these offices. And she opened up her story with a story about a kitten that she bought for her child that ended up ultimately dying, right? So what she did was she basically made every single vet in that office go, I would be stupid to not get vet insurance, because I don't want a 9-year-old to lose a baby kitten because the mom can't afford to have the surgery for that cat, right? So you find those ways. It sometimes can be, for me, I heard that story, I went, that's a little manipulating, but what it did was it tugged on the emotional heartstrings of the people. They were able to connect with it. And regardless of anything else she said, that's the one thing they remembered, was the dead kitten, right? Yeah. And go ahead.
We're all going to remember that story.
We're all going to remember that story.
But I mean, what you said, it's a little bit manipulative, sure, but it's also the truth.
Yes.
I mean,
it was the truth, though. She wasn't
sharing
making
the truth.
Yep.
And stories should be true. Yep. So I don't think there's anything wrong going out and sharing the truth, and it's a free world to make your opinion. So great point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think stories need to be long. You don't have to have like a 3, 4, 5-minute story at the beginning of your presentation, but you do need to have some sort of a story, whether that be, I oftentimes have clients tap into what are their 5 core values, and then I say, okay, well, what's a story that is inspired by one of those core values of yours? So you say you value your independence. Great. Well, what is a story about your independence? When I was a kid. Great. Well, tell me more about that, right? And then all of a sudden, you start to develop this story, this connection that's in alignment with who you are. It's true. And it's in alignment with the presentation, the pitch, the brand, whatever it is that you're delivering this material on. And so therefore, it makes it easier to tell the story because it's in alignment with you. It's in alignment with the brand and of your organization, and maybe your organization's values. And then therefore, it makes it a lot more simple for yourself. But that emotional piece is what's, I think, the most important and the details within that story.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We got to find those stories. And one thing you mentioned is like you ask your clients for the stories, because then it's much easier to tell them. I think that's a great point. But also the fact that once they know their stories, that's actually their truth. You can go to a company webpage and say, our values is we want to have respect and blah, 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 all these sort of things. And that might be their values in the boardroom. But if you don't go down to where they're working and something else is happening, there are other stories. That is not their values. So by asking people, tell me a story about a great day at work, tell me about a great or a bad day at work, or about how you cooperate, tell me the stories, that is going to reveal the truth. So stories have really a lot of power also in discovering what's your values, what's your brand, where are you. So yeah. Muhammad is saying here, for example, if I say something that other may think I'm entering the area of their legacy tasks, because I usually consider all involved paths and elements in a problem to find an integrated solution.
Mm.
What's your thought on this? Let's say you're doing a team presentation. I guess this could be the scenario. And Muhammad maybe might be covering a little bit of a colleague's area. I don't know. Or
so for
maybe you
example,
want
if I say something that others may think I'm entering the area of their task. Oh, so that I might be like encroaching in on something else. So I think I don't know if I'm going to be answering this. It sounds like you don't want to step on other people's toes, right? So you don't want to speak up in a department maybe that you're it's not necessarily what you've been tasked to do. Is that clear?
I guess that's the thing. At least I get that question, or that's how I understand it. So let's hear your opinion. Let's say that's the scenario.
Yeah, I hope this helps, and if not, I'm happy to totally have a conversation about it offline too. So I'm offering that up. With the improvisational piece of it, I think something that has been really helpful for people in what I think the question is here is finding those inclusive voices in the room, right? So that we all come into the space with different levels of experience and knowledge. And so how do we find equal playing ground? Yes, and is a great tool. So for example, and this is in the beginning stages, I feel for ideation or problem solving, which is let's just get all the ideas out with we're not going to debate anything. We're just going to get on the whiteboard and we're going to write down. I'm going to yes and everything that Asger says. He's going to yes and everything that I say. And then that way, all of our voices get seen and heard. We get to all see it on this whiteboard. And then we can go through it. And then that's when we can start going, does this live here? Does this feel important? Do we need to explore this more? And so then what I encourage from that is the curiosity piece of it. And curiosity is one of my favorite words. And because I think it's so important to constantly keep that curious mindset of like, why? Why do you have this point of view? Why are we struggling in this area? How can I help you? Tell me what's been working first before you go to the negative things. We tend to go negative first, or we say no first, but like, tell me more. What is working about that? Okay. What can we do to shift that? Right. So the other thing is if we say no to everything, or if we block another person's point of view, we have just, unfortunately kept ourselves from a potential inspiration into something that we wouldn't have thought of together if we hadn't gotten the bad idea. So put the bad ideas out on a whiteboard because it could inspire a good idea, but we can't get there if we don't allow ourselves to do it. So I hope that answers your question.
Really, really good points. I want to add to the wonderful stuff you just said is, try to bring the other people up. Let's say you're talking about something from another department that you kind of have to mention in order for your stuff to make sense. Then you could phrase saying, I've heard in the department. Now I know I'm talking about not my area of expertise. I'm trying to get it as right as possible. If I'm wrong, let me know, come up and tell me afterwards. But anyway, here's my take on it. And you lift them up. You say something positive. Over in Department X, they're doing wonderful work here and here. So this goes in with the stuff we're doing. So you kind of, you show some humbleness. Oh, it might be mistaken. I don't think so, but this is how I use it. So, that kind of gives you a little bit of leeway out if there's anything. And if you did make a mistake, you have kind of said, okay, I'm open to listen. So I think try to lift others up, be humble in those areas where you might not be the expert, but be cool with the things stand by that ground. And if there do come another expert that says, I do have another opinion, acknowledge that, because sometimes we can be challenged by the audience and say, you know what, I don't think that's right. And maybe in their world, it's their truth, and say, I understand where you're coming from. Maybe those are your experiences, and you could be right. I'm just sharing my knowledge from my life. I'm listening to what you're saying. So I'm going to keep going with this, but we could have an interesting conversation afterwards. So, kind of keep it that way, light, not trying to be the expert. Of course, my goal is to help. As you know, dependencies among system and departments have getting more close there, and also nice zoning in each area, for example, in civil planning, power, data, telecommunications. So solutions need to meet all of those concerns. This is why we should go for all involved sectors that cause problem or demand. So it is a little bit confusing when presenting a way that no one feel that had done something wrong. That's the thing, sometimes you are going to put yourself out there and say, you know what, you can't please everyone. That you also do have to know. So it's a little bit of a balance, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's tough. The other thing I call into the space too sometimes are the rules of engagement. Like, how do you want the people within this group to engage with each other? Are you ask? Yeah. And I think that the way we give each other feedback and share knowledge with each other, we get to set that up. We get to set that up for ourselves as the presenter too, especially in these smaller settings. Like, how do I want this room to engage with each other? And what kind of advice do I need from the group? And what am I inviting in? We get to set those boundaries for ourselves. And I think that's super important. And I feel that the way I like to frame it is you're the host of your own party. So imagine if you had a group, you invited guests into your own home, you set up that party in the way in which you want people to engage, right? So do the same thing with your presentation with the people that you're calling to the table. How do you want everyone to engage at your party?
Yeah, very good point. Do you want to take questions along your presentations? Do you want to do it afterwards? How is this going to work for you? Be clear on that. And if you want to take questions, can they be long or can they only be short? But like, get to the point. I want the question, not your story or whatever you tend to do. So one thing I've been dying to ask you for, let's go into a new topic, which is because, I'm not a voice trainer. I know you work with voice and I'm sure you have all sorts of exercises, but I do help people with their voice. Now, I'm not a voice trainer. So one of the things I try to teach people, and I'll have you take on it, is to connect with that feeling that, if you want to go on the stage, want to feel confident, then your voice will automatically change. So for me, and let me hear your opinion about it. There's like two ways you can go. You can do a lot of voice training where you do exercises, and that is also going to help your voice. But there's also the place where you go, well, let me empower myself, and the voice will automatically change. So do you see those two, what you can say, handles to pull? Or what do you think about this?
I think I do. I feel like there's a few things I'm hearing in there. One is I do feel strengthening the voice is really important, especially for enunciation, inflection. If you're presenting to larger groups, being able to feel heard and be heard, for the person in the very back row, being able to take up that stage with your vocal presence is just as important as the body. I think the body and the voice are very much connected. For sure. So when you say that confidence piece, I imagine like you always hear the power stance.
Yeah, the power pose.
The power pose with your arms out, and there's a lot to be said just in that alone. Like if you're bending your elbows and not actually fully embodying that power pose, your voice is going to be different. Right? This, I'm still a little timid. I'm still a little scared. But if I go like this and I really allow myself to feel it, right, that's going to be different. Sometimes I'll do vocal exercises where it's like you're throwing I have them physicalize it. You're winding up, you're throwing the baseball and you're hitting the back wall with your voice and with the physical action at the same time. So I feel like, yes, those go hand in hand. The way you feel in your body and how you radiate that out, it definitely goes hand in hand with the vocal variation that one needs. And then I think modeling, there's a lot of talk about like model how would Tony Robbins sound? Like model somebody that you really respect, right? Or that you have seen deliver a dynamic presentation. What did they do? What was the tonality like? What were their body gestures like? What did they do in a moment where they wanted to get my attention? So really looking and modeling people, I think, is also super helpful for that. And then the visualization piece of it, which you had mentioned, playing soccer, as athletes, a lot of athletes will visualize themselves making that goal or having an amazing game. And I think it's similar here too. You visualize yourself connecting to your voice, doing an amazing job in front of that audience, taking the stage or presenting in the boardroom. And so hopefully that helps. And then the exercises are like the tongue twisters, noticing the muscles in your face that we don't normally use, the vocal muscles, and then our diaphragm, I think, is huge.
Yeah,
the diaphragm is so underused. Our voice, our breath tends to get shallow. Our voices get more shallow because of the way we're moving through the world these days. A lot of it's sitting and hunched over a computer. So.
Yeah, and more and more people get stressed.
Yes.
Which is, and like you just did it, we get the breath right up here, right? Which is not the optimal for speaking. But that's really cool, because, combining those two genres, you can say actual core vocal exercises, but also the body, combining that's amazing, because mainly I've seen the two parts, but, obviously doing both together, it's going to be way more impactful.
Yes.
So very, very nice.
Yeah.
And that's why probably one of the reasons why I like to do my talking for when I prepare my talks is to walk, because it's kind of, you get the flow going, and you get to burn off a little bit of that cortisol, and you tend to be loose, you tend to be free, and you're standing up. And people are back home listening to this, you can feel the difference if you're sitting down or if you're standing. And that's probably why you're standing too. One of the reasons, at least, you get a better voice than if you're just sitting. And again, if you have your feet positioned well, you're also going to sound better. If you're a little bit more straight, the voice is going to calm. So it all matches together. So that's a big work. Go ahead.
No, well, I just want to add too, it surprises me how many people will practice by just looking at the words and not saying them out loud.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of, like, you need to say the words out loud. You can pace your room, and look, everyone's going to practice differently, but you need to find what does work for you. But pacing back and forth, using your voice is really important. And one other thing I was going to say too, Asger, you said like the thing you love to do before you get on stage is listen to music and get yourself like upbeat. Yeah. I like to do push-ups. I do push-ups and I count out loud because then I get to hear my voice. It drops to my diaphragm, and then I get buff.
Nice, man. Yeah, you're super buff. So nice. Yeah. That's cool, man. And that's the thing. We all gotta find our own mental warm-up, physical warm-up. You've got yours. And for me, I keep a little bit the same, because then before I go on stage, I feel like a winner because my body knows this particular pattern. It's like you're ready for the stage.
Yeah.
So if you have 20 different ones, maybe your body, at least for me, that's been my experience, you're not going to get into the same state as quickly. So having, let's say you have 10, 20 different songs that are your favorite songs, you can pick those that is going to match your energy. And like you can do your push-ups and get in state. So I think that's incredibly important to do that. And a lot of people don't do that. I think in boardrooms and they were thinking, I'm just going to go up and see how it goes. But then you're leaving things to chance rather than optimizing your chances. Yeah. I mean, sure, things can go wrong, but why not optimize it so you have the least risk rather than just relying on luck? We can all have amazing days. Awesome if that's your day, you're presenting. But what if you had a bad day? Then you're a little bit screwed and your presentation is not going to be as good. And that's the world we live in. If we're going to go out and speak, there are going to be good days and bad days. But as professionals, we have to optimize it. Yeah,
I think being good with boundaries is also a great way to optimize it too. So if you have your routine is you go to work when we're not in a pandemic, let's just say you go to work and you're going to be approached by 3 or 4 people, because that's habitually what happens is you walk in, you go into the staff room or whatever, and 4 or 5 people already have questions for you early in that morning, but you have a presentation to give. Like, it's up to you to set those boundaries, to be like, I really care about what you have to say, but right now I need to go take 20 minutes for myself before this presentation. Right. Because
Yeah.
I think we get bad sometimes with our boundaries because we're so caught up in what our normal routine is that we don't set that time aside for ourselves to really get present. And so I would just say you got to be good at those boundaries, whether that be virtually in your own family in the home
Mhm.
or whatever that living situation is, and also at work.
Very, very true. That's one of the reasons why if I have, let's say I'm doing a workshop, I will go away and take a break for myself to get recharged, do those breathing exercises, maybe just 5 minutes, take one
Yeah.
song, I'm ready, get back in there. I can do some chit chatting, but I won't use, I would do that before, use the whole breaks with the audience, try to connect. Oh, maybe I could get a client more. You know what? No, just go get recharged and deliver an amazing product. And then, of course, they're going to come if they like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, one thing I want to talk to you about your product or your thing you have Confidently Speaking Club, which
Yes.
is like a weekly program. Let me walk you through that. What's the process people can expect if they join that? Because I think that's missing in today's world. We can take an online course and sure it can help us, but are you really going to watch the entire program? Are you going to put everything into action? What if you aren't putting things into action? I mean, and I can be honest, I go out and do workshops and maybe you come back half a year later. Sure, maybe a few of the people have applied this stuff and done it, but I think we ultimately need like weekly practice over the long run to make a change. So let me hear what this program can do.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
asking about that. So, I started a program called Confidently Speaking, and I really saw the value in the community group coaching. And so I created one. I was like, well, I'm liking it, so I want to create more of a community. I'm also a collaborator myself. I love working with people on a regular basis. And so it is an online club, if you will,
Hmm.
community, and you can join as a member for free if you
Hmm.
want to, which means that you'll be able to connect with other people who join for free. Occasionally, I'll put a prompt up in there that will make you, have to really think deep about something or your communication style. Maybe I will put up an exercise for you to do. But then there's the club, which every week, if you join the club, which I think it's only like $39.99 a month, and it's ongoing. Once a week, I focus in on a subject. So the first week of every month, I focus in on anxiety and nerve management. So we would go through a series of exercises with the group. And then I record those. So if people miss it, they can go back and watch it. And then the second week, we would talk about content and storytelling. The third week would be about online and stage presence. And then the fourth week is a Q&A. So if there's something that you've been dying to ask me that you need some help with, then I can help answer those questions at that time. And then what I love about it is because it's a group, because it's a community, if you need people that you can practice, if you need to practice in front of somebody, you can invite
Hmm.
other people in from the community to practice with. You can always have access to me to ask me questions. I'm always happy to answer the questions that people have. And then what you do is you tag each other, you converse with each other, and then you get these prompts that will help you think a little bit more about the subject matter. And then you come back every week. And sometimes you may not need it that week, but then you can come back the following week. So it's really there to be a support system to help you with the process and the growth of becoming a better, more confident speaker. And because to me, tips and tricks are great to a point, but they're not unless you're invested and committed to the process itself, you're really not going to see the results that you really want to see.
No, like you said, you need that long process to
Yeah.
really make a big difference. Anybody that studied learning and went a little bit deeper, sure, you can get a 2 hour session and I'm sure you can get help and it will be better, but you're not going to make transformational changes through a 2 hour training, no matter who it is. I
Yep.
don't believe that, but I do believe in showing up every week, well, let's say every other week. Plus, also, I think what's great about what you have is when we are in a community, we keep thinking about it. I recognize this for myself. Let's say I have a speaking gig at a certain, a certain client. I'll be thinking about, okay, how can I help them more? My mind
Yeah.
will tune into it. Let's say I'm speaking to researchers that are studying medicine. I'll be like, how can I find examples with medicine? How can I
Yeah.
connect with them better? Whereas if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be thinking about that. So it kind of pushes us a little bit. And what we focus on is what we're going to learn. So why not focus on getting some training and learning this? Because, $40 a month, right? It's not much. Think about your worth if you did one more sales to a client. Now, I don't know what you're working with, but it's better be more than $40. Even over a year, let's say you get some, I guess you get a little bit discount. Let's say it's 400 over a year. It's doing one more sales. Is that more than $400 for you? Probably. Most cases, right? So,
I actually,
I mean, go
yeah,
ahead.
it's funny that, no, I have an ROI calculator on my website. So if you go to
Nice.
grundaicoaching.com, there's an ROI calculator for how much money is your team losing per year due to bad presentations.
Wow. I'm
So you
curious
can
to
go
check that
there.
one out.
Yeah, you'll be surprised.
That is funny. I should have that. I should have
You
one of.
should.
Yeah,
You
I
can
should,
steal
man.
that idea. I give it to you.
That's a great idea. That's the best tip you ever given me. So awesome. We're in it for the money, or
So
at least that is measurable. So really, really cool. And then you got your podcast. I want to hear a little bit about what is that podcast? Where can people find you? What do you talk about? Who do you invite?
yeah.
And so on.
Yeah, thank you. It's called Are You Waiting for Permission? And I co-host it with Joseph Bennett. He lives in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. I live in New York City. We both
Nice.
met because I was visiting San Miguel and I was at a micro theater project and he happened to be there and performing in it. He hired me to teach improv to a group of expats. About 3 months ago, he reached out. He's like, let's do a podcast together. And I said, with you, Joseph Bennett? Of course. And so we started Are You Waiting for Permission? And we interview people who either are still waiting to give themselves permission to follow their dreams and their goals. And we've also interviewed a lot of people who have already given themselves that permission and have done some pretty fantastical things in life because they took that leap of faith, they took that risk, they became change makers. And so it's been really a delightful experience, a heart-opening experience. And yeah, we release a new episode every Thursday. And if there's any of your listeners want to be a guest, or if you yourself want to be a guest, we have a form. Just reach out to us and I'll send you the link. But yeah, cool. It's been a really wonderful experience. So Are You Waiting for Permission? Thanks for asking about it.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't. And I guess we all to some degree are, but we got to break through it because in that way we can help more. We can serve more. And like we already talked about, if there are people that say you don't have permission, those aren't going to be the people you're going to help. Those aren't going to be the people you need to talk to. Let's find those awesome people. And luckily, almost everybody is awesome. So, I mean, I've been having a great time with you. I really enjoyed it. I think we've covered a lot of great stuff. Improv, fear, anxiety, storytelling on stage, on camera, and how to use your voice. I mean, you gave some great tips on that. I'm going to try to implement that.
Awesome.
And gestures and how to practice on your awesome podcast. I'm going to check that one out, definitely.
Thank you.
And I'm curious about if people are going to sign up for your Confidently Speaking and getting that weekly practice, because that is what we really need.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you want to leave us with anything here? What's the number one tool people can take away? If you should give them one thing for a great speech, what would that be?
Break the rules.
Nice.
Stop doing it the same way everybody else has been doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great tip. So what's the best way to link up with you? Is that through LinkedIn and then checking out your podcast and your Confidently Speaking Club?
Yeah, you can check me out on LinkedIn, and then it's Grundei Coaching, which is spelled like my name there, and then confidentlyspeaking.club. So I am in all places. Just Google my name and let's connect. Cool. I would love that.
Yeah,
thank you.
Awesome. And thank you to everybody that tuned in here today. We had a couple of people who wrote awesome comments, who sparked great energy into the conversation. Really enjoyed it, everybody that joined in. And take care, everybody. I'll see you on the other side.
Thank you. Bye.